we are setting off. I will try to use English, and all the presentations are in English because we have many guests from across the Europe. So thank you all for coming in this early morning in the Saturday. This is the first of Wro Open Source event. We hopefully will organize all the set of next events in this series. This is the test flight for us, so please please understand all the mistakes we can make here. But the first presentation is from Raul about React Native. We will start in the next 2 minutes, and first of all, I would like to thanks to all our partners, colleagues, companies, Wro Inc., Access to Idea Place, for sponsoring this event, for helping us organize this event. And one more thing at the beginning. Ben Marks, who is planned to speak at the end of the conference, unfortunately cannot attend because he has some family troubles, so he has to stay. Sorry for that. And that's all. Have a good day, have good fun here. There's free beer, free food, and everything. Enjoy it. Just enjoy it. So thanks.
All right, welcome everybody. Oh my God, so many people. So let me start with a question. How many of you have contributed to open source at least once? So raise your hand. Cool. How many of you are active open source contributors? Only 3? Okay, but hopefully this talk is going to be useful for all of you guys, covering the 3 groups. Let me start a bit about me, introduce myself. My name is Raul, and as you may notice, I know Polish. I'm from Spain, and I landed in this beautiful country 5 years ago. And I believe I have all the requirements to be like a Polish citizen, because I have a PESEL number, I have karta pobytu, I mówię trochę po polsku, but for the purpose of this talk, I'm going to do it in English, so don't expect too much from that. I work currently at Costa.io as a React Native developer. So if you don't know Costa, it's a consultancy company, and we basically do React and React Native projects. We're outsourced by other clients, and we deliver kind of products across the globe. This is my GitHub link. You can see my Twitter handle as well, and my Medium account where I blog posts from time to time, so feel free to check them out. So what is this talk? This talk is going to be divided in 3 sections, okay? So the first part, I'm going to skim the surface into existing open source problems. This may be a bit kind of coupled to JavaScript, but hopefully it's kind of going to be generic and we can kind of extrapolate to all languages. The second part, I'm going to show you how to build a JavaScript library like a pro. It's basically about tooling and ecosystem about JavaScript. And the third part of the talk will be about release and maintenance, as well as current and future plans, in terms of open source when it comes to myself. So, yeah, I can use the, no problem, I can use the,
but you guys are from where, right?
All right.
I see you here.
All right, we're along with this. So let's dive into open source. So this graph that I'm showing is basically the evolution of GitHub repositories from 2009 to 2013. If you see the evolution, back in 2012 is where things started to grow exponentially. Only in this year, more than 55% of total repositories were created. 2016, there were 20 million active repositories during that year. Active, so imagine this is only covering active. So you may wonder, with this rate of kind of growth, we may end up by 2030 with more repositories than human beings. Could be the case. This is crazy. And is this something beneficial for the community? Where is the limit? Should I just go and put in my 2 cents and create another JavaScript library? So this is kind of analogy. It's an analogy to the JavaScript called fatigue. That if you don't know the terminology, it means that at this right time that I'm giving this talk, a new JavaScript framework is being created. So to answer that, it's like you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are the amount of tools available to us already is immense, but there are three problems, and those problems are, in my opinion, discovery, quality assessment, and CDD. And CDD is a term that is not TDD. It's something that I made up this week, and I will explain you later what it means. So what do I mean by discovery? Discovery, what I mean is basically the ability of selecting and finding the right tool for the job. The ecosystem evolves rapidly, and that's a good thing. But you cannot rely anymore on your bookmarks. And Google may not be your best friend either, because it kind of prioritizes established solutions that may not be the best fit for your project. By quality assessment, I mean the fact of you need to, this question arises, which is, how much can I rely on a library? And you normally look at factors like number of stars, open issues, pull requests, number of contributors, quality of the documentation. But if you are taking your first steps into open source, that may be a bit daunting. So it's another problem. And this is the last problem. Conference CDD stands for Conference-Driven Development. And here in Wro, we hosted the first React Native conference ever. Speakers around all the world, they came. I was talking to some of them, and we kind of came into some interesting conversation. And one of them is like, people apply to conferences, and they submit us a talk, like creating a new library, which is cool, something innovative. So, of course, those talks are accepted. So those guys are 2 months working on the library. They go on stage, they kind of showcase it, and even they open source it live on stage. And that causes a lot of hype. Now we're like, oh my God, this is so cool. I want to, people already with the laptops are already starting the library as, those guys are talking. But the problem comes after, because most of this library end up left in the dust, and then they are not maintained anymore. You cannot rely on them. So I believe there is a possible solution to fix this problem as well. Let me grab a bit of water. Okay. There are also some key points to keep in mind. Open source is not a competition, first of all. This is not about creating a new library which has the most number of stars. All the libraries attempt to solve a specific problem. And believe it or not, most of the problems are already resolved. Okay? So instead, we need to see it as a collaborative environment. That's how great tools are created and kind of improve over time. The most popular libraries nowadays are backed by hundreds of contributors. So, what you need to do is contribute to existing libraries. And, join that way, start with something simple, which is documentation. And documentation is one of the most underrated things that exists in open source. Not everybody is good at writing documentation, especially myself, I'm terrible. So, it will be nice to encourage others to help in that sense. So, okay, Raul, you just discourage, creating new libraries right here in the first 10 minutes, I believe. So, how does a library get born? So for that, we need to look at the use case and analyze this use case from the point of view of discovery and quality assessment. So what was my problem? So I was building a React Native application on my free time as a side project. And I truly love building mobile applications with minimum effort. And I've been doing Android and iOS before in the past. But when React Native came into the world, I fell in love and I went all in with it. But mobile apps require you to cover things that you may overlook if you're a bit careless. And one of those is offline support. You have to be a good offline citizen when you build a mobile app, because the user is expecting that if you are on underground, on airplane mode, your app doesn't crash. So how to connect those two in React Native? So what I found, if we talk about discovery, the first thing that I did is go with React Native offline, obviously. And what I was expecting some library or so established solution, already created to kind of pop up. I will make my life easier. How many times have you heard the sentence, make my life easier in a library? So, I realized that even myself, I fall into the temptation, and I added this sentence one more time. That's why I'm telling you, I'm not a good writer when it comes to API or docs. We need to change that. So the results that came up, there were 3 basically projects that I'm not going to list the name, but React Native's offline something else.
Yes.
2 were libraries. What's that?
I was testing streaming. It's working.
Okay, cool. Oh my God, now I'm nervous. And 1 example application. So among those 3, the most star library was 83 stars, but basically it was just 1 file with 50 lines of code. Last comment, and I'm talking that I kind of tackled this problem on April this year, was 12th of January, so it's not kind of maintained, and it didn't have test coverage. So how can I rely this library? How do I know that it works as it says? So, there was no sense on dumping in a library. And my use cases were actually, that was my wish list that I wanted to cover in my application. So the first thing is, I wanted to show or hide elements on my screen, depending on whether I was online or offline. I wanted something to have easy Redux integration. If you're not familiar with, you're not JavaScript developers, Redux is basically a JavaScript stage management library, the de facto solution nowadays. It works with React, with Angular, Vue.js. So I wanted something nice integrated there. And also, third point, I wanted to apply drive principle, because I ended up kind of repeating on my API calls this kind of if I'm connected, fetch data, otherwise kind of handle the offline error. And I had like 20 calls, I was repeating the same thing, I don't like repeating code, so how can I sort this out? And last but not least, offline queue, because you may interact with your application and suddenly you lost connection, and what I would like to have is when the connection is back online, I want to kind of sync up with my server, so that everything is all right and I'm not off sync. So, okay, abstraction. So, I came to the point that I created solutions for all those problems. That was part of my code, application code. But then I said, this question came to me, I wanted to move on and kind of finish my Java as soon as possible, but, it's like, will this be useful for other people? And of course the answer is yes, because there was no solution for offline. And believe me, React Native is pretty new in the ecosystem, but there are already applications shipped in production with a lot of users. So why not? So let's do it. Let's do an open source library. It was my first one, and I took that decision. So now we're gonna start the second part of my talk, which is building a JavaScript-based library. This, of course, we're talking about React Native library, but React Native is all about JavaScript. So this actually, all the tooling that I'm gonna show can apply to Node.js libraries or browser-oriented as well. So I'm gonna start actually, I'm gonna cover incremental tooling. So I'm gonna start, in my opinion, what is the must-have in a library. And then we're gonna go upwards, and we're gonna talk about something nice to have, and in the end, something cool to have. Nice, cool. I don't know how to differentiate those two, but let's assume this is gonna be the hierarchy. So ESLint, in case you don't know, is a static kind of analysis tool for your code. It discovers problems in JavaScript without executing the code. And if code doesn't adhere to certain guidelines, so ESLint is gonna yell at you. And it kind of detect problems, that, for example, you declare a variable and you're not using that variable, or the other way around, you're using a variable that is not declared. So those problems can be detected before actually running your code, and this is pretty cool. It comes with a predefined set of rules embraced by the JavaScript community. So basically, there are already some rules that everybody agrees that is the good thing to have. Also, if you want to add your own rules, it's easily pluggable. So how does it work? This is an example of ESLint working with the editor integrated. So in this case, it's telling you, don't outsmart developers. I don't know how many JavaScript developers are here, but do you know what this operator does? I didn't know either. But this is a bitwise operator, which is the two complements. So this is the same as, find this element in the array. If I find it, return the index of it. If the index is -1, it's not kind of there. So the complement is 0, which is falsy, and that's it. So it's like, don't outsmart actually yourself, the fruit yourself. Maybe you forgot what it does. So ESLint is gonna say, don't do that. Then we have prettier. I shouldn't have done that. All right, let's go back. Okay, cool. So Prettier is an open-ended code formatted for JavaScript that is going to enforce a consistent code style in your code base. So no more tabs versus spaces, please. Let's forget about that one. So you focus on writing code, and you don't have to spend cycles, reformatting your code, which is valuable time. That 2017, please. Let's not do that anymore. And how does it work? You have, for example, this long, function which is being called with this long series of arguments, and Prettier automatically is gonna do this for you. You don't have to worry about that. Then we're gonna go upwards. So this is ESLint and Prettier for me is the must-have in a library because it's focused on developer experience. So this is nice, something that it has to be there. Then this is kind of nice to have. And Flow, how many of you know what Flow is? Okay, I see how many JavaScript developers we have here. So it's a static type checker for JavaScript. And what it does is provides kind of a type system on top of JavaScript, because JavaScript is, it's basically dynamic loose type language. And the benefits is, you kind of incorporate Flow incrementally to your code base. So you can start with a small part of your app like API calls or business kind of logic or components. In fact, the beauty is that it finds bugs you encounter in runtime. So you spin up a server which is checking your code all the time as you type it, and you declare some types, and Flow automatically is going to infer the types across your old code base. Again, it can spot amazing bugs. For example, typical undefined is not a function where you're calling a property on an object and that property doesn't exist. So Flow is going to say, hey, this is not cool. And this is the benefits, but of course there is a small downside, and is you need to spend more time in learning how Flow works, all the type system that it has. And also you need to kind of type your code. JavaScript doesn't, you need to type it. Then we have testing. Who loves testing here? Yes! So, in JavaScript testing was kind of painful. Then Jest framework came into the scene and I started loving it more. And testing in the library is pretty important because you guarantee your users that the library is going to work as it says. So, as a consequence, you will have less issues in your open source library because it's more stable. And this is a very cool thing, and I love it because it facilitates external contributions, meaning that when people will add pull requests to your library, if you have a test suite in place, they just have to commit to that test suite. And you will make sure that they are not breaking other parts of your app. So you can actually merge them faster. And continuous integration is on that level of nice to have. Probably all of you know, so I'm not going to spend much time. So how does it work? This is about automation of deployments and testing. But when it comes to a library, it's more like testing. So you basically commit your code in your local machine, push it to GitHub, for example, and GitHub has a hook to your CI kind of client. It can be Travis, it can be Circle CI, and the CI server is going to run whatever you tell it to run, and normally it's perfect for testing. So you run your test, it's going to run the test in the server, it's going to report back to you, and it's going to tell you if everything went fine or not. So with this workflow, you don't have to kind of write your code, test it locally, and then it works, and send it to GitHub. You can actually forget about that. And I like to mix this with Git hooks. So my workflow normally is I have a pre-commit hook for linting and Prettier. So my code is kind of, it adheres to the kind of the guidelines. And then I run Flow, which is slow for types, and test on the CI server. And this is the cool to have example application in your library. Because for me, this is a key factor for developer engagement. Users are lazy. I'm very lazy, and I like to go to a library, see some kind of example application or some code snippet, and I copy, paste it. That's it. It works. I adapt it a bit, but that's it. And this is going to improve quality assessment. And in my open source library, I ran into this issue. I didn't know that was that important. So this guy actually opened an issue like, hey, Raul, can you create some example application will be useful to show how can you use this library? Because API is cool, but how does it apply in the end to a real project? And I said, I wrote a Medium article apart from the library to actually explain use cases and some code examples. It wasn't enough for him. He's right. He wanted a full cycle of the library's usage that will be mentally, easy to follow mentally. And when I came, I realized, okay, he's right because in my case, I started creating the code as part of my application. And then I did the extraction to a package. And for him, it's the other way around. He has the black box and he needs to know how to use it. So I understand. I started to realize that this is something important for open source library. Batches, of course, so you need to showcase, that the library is going to shine in terms of quality assessment. So how can you do that? There are millions of batches. In my case, I have the circle CI1 to kind of tell the user that the build is passing, so it's working. NPM package, the follow Sember. Sorry for the coverage, it's not 100%. It's so difficult to cover branches sometimes that, it's like, it's just one line or 2 lines of text that I had to add, but I've been so lazy that I like the 99%, let's leave it there. And the number of downloads per month, so you can add that. I believe hundreds of kind of batches, but I believe those ones are, minimum kind of subset you should have. And just to sum up everything that I explained, this is kind of the quality pyramid I created. So starting from the bottom, we have the must-have tools, ESLint, pre-tier, and the Git hooks. I like to put it there for kind of pre-commit a hook for LinkedIn and pre-tier. And this is actually covering the developer experience. If we move up, we have flow for types. We have just for this is unit test in the library. And we have the continuous integration. And this is going to provide a layer of robustness and reliability in your library. And if we move up, of course, this is the cool to have, which is the sample application. And this is more focused on user experience. I could be talking about more things when it comes to the library, more goodnesses for 10 minutes more, but I'm going to just summarize 3 more extra things that you could have and it's nice to have. So you may wonder, okay, so you're playing a lot of tooling around, but do I have to set them up manually, create like a LinkedIn configuration, pre-tier configuration, flow configuration? So you don't have to. We have actually in Costa one library, which is a node model generator. So it's like based on Geoman. So it's gonna bootstrap a project that has all this configuration for free. And you just have to focus on start with your library. It also has, I believe, unit testing support. So it creates the folders, the structure that you need for testing. Commit design, there are those jokes about commit messages, like, oh, this doesn't work, this solves the problem. So, you can be bad citizen or good citizen, but if you are kind of careless, you can use this tool. And this tool, you can provide some kind of convention to create commit messages. There is one typical one from Angular, I believe, and you use something like fit for feature, back for back, core for any unrelated thing. And so that everybody knows what this commit was about, what kind of code did you change or transform. And you can combine it with semantic release. That actually is another tool that works with commit design pretty well. And basically, when you run semantic release, it's gonna kind of take a look at your commit messages, it's gonna read the messages, and based on actually all the commit that happens before the last release, it's gonna figure out the new version number following Sember. It's gonna push it to NPM. And this is pretty cool because then it's gonna generate, a change log in your GitHub, and it's gonna generate also like on the release kind of tab, it's gonna generate the new version. So users can go there and check in the new version what is new, and you don't have to type it manually. And actually, I haven't used this one, and I believe it's something cool to add. Okay, so we're gonna head to the last part of my talk, which is release and maintenance. Let's start with a story, which is naming. So, I made the mistake that I didn't know which name should I use for the library. Now it's React Native offline, that's clear. But I didn't want to use that one because for me it was pretty official. Like, oh, this is like the official solution. And I was experimenting. It was my first open source library. So I want to take that over. So if you take a look at my NPM profile, those are the same library. I have 4 names. So I kind of polluted the whole namespace in NPM. And can you tell me which one I pick up first? Which one do you believe was my first choice?
The third one.
The third one, right? So it was this one. I don't know why, don't ask me why. I was thinking in terms of connectivity. I selected that name, and when I advertised the library, I kind of pushed it to NPM, deployed to NPM, sorry. And then 2 hours later, I realized, come on, Raul, but this is about offline, and the word offline is not there. So you're breaking discovery. Discovery that I talked about before, I was breaking that rule already. So it's like, no, I cannot live with that. So 2 hours later, I came back to my computer and I kind of deployed a new version under React Native offline utilities. That was the second one I picked, which was more concise. And so I did that. I had already a redirection in GitHub happening because I changed the name of the repo. But my friend told me, come on, man, utilities nowadays, this is utils. Everybody use utils for kind of utilities, like a shorter name. It was a stupid thing, but he did Inception on me, and I went back to my computer and repeated the process the same day. After that, I kind of put my mobile in offline mode, pun intended. So I stopped listening to my friends like, let's go to sleep, let's call it a day. So it went, finally the final name was React Native Offline Utils for 2 months. And last month, since I saw that this library was getting traction, I was like, okay, maybe it's time to make it more official. And I changed the name one more time, so this is the final one, React Native Offline. But yeah, don't do that. I mean, at NPN, if once you choose a name, it's gonna stay there. You cannot remove it. There is no option. It's on the registry. But yeah, so my advice is, when you create a library, first of all, think of the name beforehand. Bootstrap the library and deploy whatever you have. It doesn't matter. The name is yours already. Maybe another person will come the day after and will take it, and you will say, oh my, you cannot take it. This is unique, has to be unique. So then the second reaction that I have is, second case is, when I kind of released my library, a guy from the community gave a talk in React London and created this guy, Redux Offline, at the same time. So, since he's famous and known in the community, everybody, as explained in the conference-driven development thing, starting the library, trying it out, that's gonna be the solution. So, my reaction was, oh my God, first library that I created, and I had this guy kind of stepping on me. So, I wanted to do something like that. Go to his repo, open an issue, kind of show him how I felt. But the good thing is, the library was broader than mine. It was focusing on web and kind of React Native. So in the end, they could live together. And I talked to this guy actually in the conference. I didn't tell him this. Like, hey man, cool library. But yeah, finally, it was good news in the end. You need to advertise your library. This is another important thing. How to do it, write a blog post in Medium, because normally in a README is more technical. You're gonna write API, you can write a small section about motivation. But if you write a blog post, as I did, it's like I'm explaining kind of why I created this library, which was part of my talk, and some more realistic code examples that people will appreciate. Tweet about it, of course. Reddit is a very powerful also tool. You can actually in Reddit post a link to your Medium article or the library, and there's some category. It can be React Native, JavaScript, depending on the language you are using in your daily basis. There will be one in Reddit, and use Facebook groups. And this is pretty powerful in React Native, because there is a Facebook group which has 30,000 people. So you post whatever thing there, like you can post your library, and believe me, it's gonna be spread out because people will see it immediately. So follow those ones. Don't be afraid of advertising it. Also, yeah, one of the mistakes that I did is contribution guidelines. I didn't think about that much. So I ended up having 2 pull requests recently from people about new functionality. The problem is I didn't see it clear to merge those, because I believe you could actually achieve the same thing with the current implementation. So, what happened is, those guys created some code with, they were excited to help, and in the end, it was a bad thing because I'm still discussing with them how to actually iterate through that. So, what you should do is create a contribution guideline from the beginning. Say, if you want to open a pull request, open an issue so that we can discuss the content, and when we come to some conclusion, then okay, good to go, start code. But otherwise, can be like they're wasting their time, and it's not nice thing. And the last point is pretty cool. It's a project from Ken C. Dodds about kind of awarding contributors. So if you use this tool, automatically it will generate in your README something like this. So it's pretty cool. It uses emojis to kind of state in which part kind of the guy helped. So this book is for documentation. There is no computer. Computer is for code. The eyes are for code reviews and pull requests. So it's like a way of rewarding your contributors. And yeah, maintenance, because this is Redux. Oh, sorry. This went crazy. Okay, maintenance. Okay, Redux Online is the library I talked before of the guy who released it at the same time as me. That was conference-driven development library, so when he actually went off the stage, he stopped working on this. You cannot see it there, but it has like 3,500 stars, which is a lot. So people, of course, started to worry about it. It's like, hey, since Devakali is the guy, because he doesn't have time, I talked to him, and it's normal. So he doesn't have time for maintaining it, so guys, it's like, let's create a fork of it and make it the official one. So this is related to CDD. How can we avoid that? Probably, try to prevent the situation beforehand. If I'm, in my case, one day I don't have time for this library, I will try to engage some people, and give them access to admin access to my library so that they can take over from there. But this guy didn't do that. I believe it's a bad practice. So I'm gonna do that already. I talked to a guy like, hey, are you interested? I'm gonna put him as an admin in case one day I go to Hawaii or something for 3 months and I don't want to work on this anymore. So what's the present and future? So well, this is my library. If you are building one day React Native application, you need to handle offline things. I believe this is the best solution you can have. As I said, I'm going to add one more maintainer to the library to actually split responsibility. And the last thing is open source the React Native app that I'm building. First, because I think others can learn from a kind of production-ready app, and the second thing, to cover that point that I missed, which is having a real example of how to use this library. And that's all. Thank you.